Okay, good. So remember last time I told you, make sure that you think about how you would evaluate God's response, right? We saw how Job has shifted, right? And now we have God's response. And from your responses, the reading assignments that I've been reading, you're not too impressed as a class in general with the response. So let's start with the haters. Let's hear some of you on why you didn't think that was an adequate response. Al-Hadai, you have a hand up.
Yeah. So because I don't, whatever God said to Job, it was a given. We all know that he's wise. We all know that he created everything. But he did not answer Job's questions. And Job was just speechless, which makes no sense to me, because if you're mad at someone, you'll go and talk no matter how cute, pretty, or whatever they are. That's why I think his response was not correct. And he said the same thing as Job's friends. He said the same thing. He said that he's wise and strong and he knows everything and he plans everything ahead. So I don't know why he's mad at them, at Job's friends, because they did nothing wrong.
You have a lot. You have a lot on your chest with regards to
We had a discussion and we couldn't finish it because we had to come back. That's why.
Good. Okay, she made 3 excellent points. Make sure you write this down, right? Number 1, he doesn't answer the question. Number 2, he's just saying a bunch of platitudes, right? Things we already know, like, what are you doing? Right? It's like somebody on an exam. This is how not to do an exam. You don't know the answer to the question, so you bullshit about everything you know, right? Seems like God is doing that, right? He doesn't know the answer. He's like, well, I'm wise and beautiful and grandiose and, don't question me, right? And then the second point, Job is very uncharacteristically silent at the end, right? This is not like Job. This is not the Job we know. What's he doing, right? One of the ways to interpret the way Job is reacting is, I'm sure you've all had that friend. Maybe you can put your hand on the screen. How many of you have had that friend where you're arguing with them and they won't listen? And after a while, you're like, you know what? Whatever. Think what you want. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Seems almost like Job is doing that. He's like, really? That's your answer? Okay, well, I guess, we're done here, right? This is not an answer, right? So the silence, right, Al-Hadai, could be a silence of, you know what? This is how you're going to do this? We're done, right? Could be that, right? Or it could be this weird submission that is not characteristic of Job. Very good. Let's hear a couple more of you on the terrible answer that God gives Job. Karuchi, and then Shepherd, and then Adu. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I thought I got my hand up after the other two, but thank you. It's a great point that our colleague made, and one of the things that really struck me, not so much about Job's silence obviously was uncharacteristic, and here he was pleading for his day in court and all this stuff, and then he finally gets it. So I kind of think he was overwhelmed, like almost like, be careful what you wish for, kind of like oh crap, here he is. But the one thing about God's response that irked me a little bit, and it was one of my critiques, is that, yes, he comes down and he tells Job and everyone who wants to listen how great he is. I made all of these things. I made the earth. I made nature. And all of the creatures on earth, the horse, the ox, the, whatever, they're all amazing. And he says nothing about humans, nothing about man. He doesn't say anything like, and this is your place in all of it, and this is my plan for you, and this is why I did what I did. And this is what I want you to do next. Like, it's just, he talks about how the eagle the hawk can soar to great heights, but you can't do anything. And the fish goes all the way down to the bottom of the sea and you're nothing. Like, so it was almost like, there was no empathy there. It was like putting salt in his wounds, so to speak.
Yeah, very good, right? He's kind of like, it's very insensitive, the answer. Absolutely. A lot of you mentioned that. Absolutely. Shepherd, go ahead.
No, I agree with my 2 other classmates. But I kind of interpreted the ending to be was almost like a metaphor for spiritual fulfillment. Like Job is understanding that his life, at least in God's eyes, is almost meaningless, and he exists just to exist. I mean, there was a line, I think it was on page 88, where it said that he was content being dust, like mere dust. And that really seems to me as he's okay with there being the king, which is God, and there being the subjects. And then them having that sort of unquestionable relationship. That's sort of how I saw it.
Good, right? So it seems like Job has just withdrawn into his humanity. Very good. Let's have just one more. Adu, and okay, fine, Goldberg. So Adu and Goldberg, and that's it. Go ahead, Adu.
So for me, like, I personally didn't really like the ending or God's response per se, mainly because I felt like a lot of the fire and passion that Job had throughout the passage and the text kind of just like got snuffed out. And all of a sudden now he's very docile and submissive in, God's presence. And I was confused as to whether or not that was because he was just accepting of the fact that God is now talking to him, or if it was just like signs of defeat that, I can't win this battle against God because, no matter what I say or do, he's going to think I'm like disobeying him in some way, shape, or form. So it was kind of, a weird ending.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan, but it is what it is.
Yep, a very disappointing ending, right? Kind of, Job kind of gives up, kind of. Okay, Goldberg, last one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I looked at this story from a little bit more of a philosophical point of view. I actually wasn't too upset at the ending because this is not the actual response of God, whatever the representation of him is in this story. This is, human beings writing this story. And obviously life is really hard. There are a lot of ups and downs. And I think that the answer that God gives is really the only answer that you can come to as a human being, that, there is chaos in the world. The world is not perfect at all. And while there can be great things, there can also be, terrible things. And to kind of sit around and wonder, why is God doing this to me? I think it's pretty arrogant to kind of put it on yourself and say, oh, is everything that's happening about me? And I think that it's a very human kind of conversation or human way of thinking about it, because we can't really give an answer to why there are bad or good things, in the world. We can only just do our best and try and, start over, which Job kind of does in the end. And I think that, as we said, one of the reasons why maybe this story isn't talked about is because it does kind of show, God to be a little bit, not so caring. God in this story to be not so caring and kind of aloof. But I don't think that we can then go and say like this is like a condemnation of God himself, because I think this is a human being's understanding of, life and what it means and why is there evil and why do bad things happen. So I actually wasn't too upset about it. In fact, I expected that to be the response because this is what a human being thinks about life. So.
Okay, good. So this is more of a literary approach, right? The text is, you're kind of saying there is something positive in the sense that we realize we are not the center of the universe, right? We don't know, we can't know. Maybe that's the message, right? So, but then I want to hear this now. Is there anybody in the class who liked the answer and thinks there is a message being given in this answer? Let's see, some brave souls. Okay, there's a few of you. All right, let's hear the pros now. We'll start with Jasper, then we'll do Giannakopoulos, and then Ahmad. Go ahead.
So I feel like not really, it's not like a big ending, yeah. But I feel like what God did was he kind of like proved his point. Like he made his point. Like I know his friends said like, he does these things, but God more so emphasized it. Like, yeah, I do these things, but do you know how to do it? Can you really do better? Do you know how to correct these things? Like, if so, then correct me. It reminded me a little bit of this movie I watched as a kid called The Prince of Egypt. It's like this cartoon about Moses and stuff like that. And there was a moment, same thing happened where Moses kind of like gave up. And then that's when God came to him in a burning bush and kind of did the same thing. Said like, why are you asking me questions? Just have faith and good will happen. And then so that was maybe, and then Job kind of just humbled and stopped talking because he was like, you know what? He just needed the reiteration, like, you're right. Like, why can't I ask you these questions? Why am I asking you these questions? There's no reason. at the end of the day, it could have just been because you were testing my faith or you felt like it.
Okay, excellent. So here's another thing, right? Now writing in the prose, right? Make sure you write these down, right? In the prose, we have the notion that God maybe is telling Job, you cannot know, but this is the only way that you can develop faith, right? If you know everything, you don't need faith. So the fact that you don't know, that I'm describing to you all the unknowables, right? I'm showing you that there's things you cannot know, but this is an opening up for you to experience the journey of faith. So very good. I like that. Okay, who was next? Who did I say? Giannakopoulos, go ahead.
I completely agree with Jasper. Like, I was really spot on. Like, the biggest thing is, like, even in Islam is saying in the comments, you know, God knows things that we do not know, you know, and that's true. And a lot of things is, like, we don't always need to know the reason why, right? And with God's response, I'm, like, actually very pleased with it, because God's saying, he's basically giving us a whole list of all the things that he does perfect, right? He's like, I make the birds to fly. Can you do that? Can you put birds on can you put like feathers on a bird, right? No, you can't. Like, so he's saying all the things that he does perfectly. And he goes, can you do the same that I do? No, right? And if I do all these things perfectly, then why do you think that I treated you unperfectly, right? It's that kind of thing. Is like, would he really make a mistake in the way that he gives us our trials? Like, you know, God gives everybody their cross to bear, right? And nobody has a cross that's too big or too small. I think that's like a really important concept that we need to learn, right? And Job's cross was, his cross was like pretty heavy, right? But he was able to bear it. And, you know, God gave him the perfect cross. And I think that's why I like his response so much, because he also doesn't need to explain himself to us. Like, he doesn't owe that to us, you know? He's already given us so much. He doesn't owe it to us. And I don't know, to me, I feel like it was kind of like a perfect response in a way.
Excellent. So second point, right? This is God telling Job, you need to trust my designs, right? I'm God. I have the big picture. You don't, clearly, but I do. So even though, right, there's a beautiful story about the canvas of our lives, right? Or the tapestry of our lives, where we are just seeing the threads behind. I don't know if you know this story. We see a bunch of chaotic threads, but when you turn it around, you see the beautiful design, right? So in a way, Job is not able to see. He's only seeing the threads behind the tapestry. He's not able to see, right, the full picture like God. So yes, I like that very much. That works too. Let's see. Last person. This is Ahmad. Go ahead, Ahmad.
In contrast to the first half that we read, I was a little hesitant and reluctant. I thought that this book was going to be horrible, but the ending just completely flipped that for me, and I got so excited at the end.
Careful, we're not there yet. Just God's response. The end, the epilogue we're going to do in a second. But do you have anything about God's response?
Yes,
Okay,
I felt like everything that we needed to know was in the dialogue.
Tell me, what did we learn?
So I'll quote the last stanza. When in Job's final reply, I have spoken of the unspeakable and tried to grasp the infinite. Listen and I will speak. I will question you. Please instruct me. I had heard of you with my ears, but now my eyes have seen you. Right there. That's where the heart of everything for me is.
Okay. Can you explain what is going through?
So before, everything similar to what we were talking about yesterday, religion for him was just something that he just heard with his ears. It wasn't a reality. But now he's finally seeing God. He's finally seeing exactly what everything is. And earlier he was sort of moping and sulking and cursing his own life. And then now he sees God for himself.
All right, excellent. So there's clearly here, he had some vision, some revelation, right? Okay, let's get into the text and see who is right of the two camps in the class, right? So first of all, yes, right? On the one hand, if you read the text on the surface, right, it's a very unsatisfactory answer, right, when you read kind of just on the surface. But remember what I told you about wisdom literature, right? Wisdom literature is always more complicated, right? It's never the simple answer. It's always a deeper philosophical answer that needs to be sought in the text, right? We have to actually excavate, dig a little bit, drill in the text to be able to find the answer, right? So what I'm suggesting to you is we try to do that today. Let's try and see what in the text is it that Job saw, right? What was this revelation? So this is actually a little difficult to explain. So I'm gonna ask you to really perk up right now, right? This is the part which I always screw up in all, all of my lectures. The students somehow never get it. So I always try to make it better, but pay very good attention because this is very subtle, right? What I'm going to be talking about. So first, I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about the tone of God's voice, which is for some of us problematic, right? And then I'm going to talk about what he's actually saying, the content, right? So the tone. I think, you know, some of you pointed out, right? What an insensitive, bullying tone, right? He's so, you know, just bellowing and, you know, showing off, and he's not sensitive to Job's suffering, and how can he talk like that, right? This is, some of you have this problem, right? So to understand this, you need the best way I can bring you to understand what is the tone about is to bring you into the hip hop culture. And why am I doing that? Because the Mediterranean culture is very similar, right? But you don't know the Mediterranean culture, so I'm going to talk about hip hop. Right. How many of you have witnessed in the movies or live a rap battle? Put your hand in the screen. Okay, rap battle, you have one guy come up, says all the things he has to say, right? And the other guy's just like this, right, listening. And then just listening, waiting, and then it's his turn, and now he's gonna, you know, destroy his opponent, right? So it's two men kind of, you know, it's a wrestling match, but with words. I want you to see this response by God like a rap battle. Job has made his case in a very passionate way. And now God is like, oh, you want to talk? All right, let's do this. Stand up like a man and let's talk, right? This thing of stand up like a man is so powerful, by the way, right? This is God telling Job, get up, right? Get up from the pitying wretch, right? Pitiful wretch that you have become. Get up and you want to talk about this? Let's do this. You want to fight? All right, let's go, right? You got to see it. I can't do it well because I'm not American, right? But you see what I'm saying? I want you to hear it. I want you to hear this gangster tone that God is using, right? When he's addressing Job. He's really getting on his level, saying, oh, you want to fight? All right, let's fight. You want to talk? I'll talk too, right? So does that help a little bit for the tone? Are you following? As New Yorkers, you should be able to see what I'm talking about, right? Put your hand in the screen if you're seeing what I'm saying, right? So this is God being very real. Really coming down to Job's level and saying, you want to fight? All right, let's fight. I'm going to say some things too. Okay, so we have this aspect, right? But now let's go in the content. What is he saying that as Ahmad mentioned very nicely, that is a revelation, right? There's something going on. And so what I want to show you today is that in the text, there is actually taking place, but between the lines, a profound revelation of God, of who God is, really, right? Which is a revelation which will completely go against the vision and representation that Job had of God in the prologue. In other words, Job had a certain vision of God in the prologue. When you get to this dialogue, to this response by God, you have a very different vision that emerges. It's as though God is revealing himself in a way that is completely contradicting what Job first saw. But for this, we have to learn to read between the lines, right? We have to see, we have to get a sense of the atmosphere of the text. And so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna read you sections of the text. And as I'm reading, I want you to write down what feelings come up for you. How do you feel as I'm reading this text, right? What are some adjectives that you would use? How would you describe the atmosphere of the text or the feelings that the text inspire you? Are you following what I'm asking you to do? I'm gonna read and I want you to tell me how do these words make you feel? Okay, that's the idea. All right, so I'm gonna randomly open, right? I'm gonna go anywhere and I want you to jot down as I'm reading, how does this make you feel? What are you sensing? What are you envisioning? Okay, so he begins, right? Where were you when I stopped the waters as they issued, gushing from the wound? When I wrapped the ocean in clouds and swaddled the sea in shadows? Have you ever commanded morning or guided dawn to its place? Have you walked through the depths of the ocean? Have you seen where the snow is stored? Do you hunt game for the lioness? Do you tell the antelope to calve? Who unties the wild donkey and lets him wander at will? Is the wild ox willing to serve you? Do you give the horse his strength, right? Do you show the hawk how to fly? Okay, are you seeing the scene? God is giving us a landscape. It's as though, I want you to imagine God here like a painter. And there's a big canvas and he's like kind of going like this, right? He's kind of painting a picture. And it's of course it's a picture full of animals and so forth, but as you see the picture, you get a sense of who the painter is. Do you see what I mean? When you watch a work of art, you can always get a sense of the personality of the painter. So as you're watching this landscape, right, that God is painting about the breadth of the ocean and the depth of the sea and the height of the sky and all of these wild animals that we cannot control and even find, what sense are you getting of the personality of God? Let's write this down. Let me hear some of you. Okay. Giannakopoulos, is that from before or is that from now?
From now.
Okay.
Like when you were reading that, it just makes me feel how minuscule I am and how unimportant I am, but it also makes me realize how important I am to God, right? Because he like hand molded me, he handcrafted me, himself, and he does everything in my life. He has a whole plan for me, right? So it makes me feel like I'm small.
Let me stop you. You're not basing what you're saying on the landscape. Stay with us. Okay. The landscape, what does it tell you? Continue now.
So like he goes, do you put power into the horses, right? It's like, no, of course I can't do that. Like, I don't have the power to do that, right? I forgot some of the other things you were saying, but like that's a big one. It's like, we don't have the power to do that, right? Only he has the power to do that.
Let me stop you again. You're talking again about us. I'm saying we have to see a vision of the painter. Who is the painter?
God.
No. Okay, but what does it say about the painter, what you're reading? What characteristics?
That he's all powerful. And
okay, we got it.
Things that we can't. All
right, so I'm going to write all down, the attributes you tell me, okay? So power, what else? I see that Delmas feels small, so I'm going to say we have grandeur, right? He's very, there's a lot. What else? Let's see who else. Let me check. Oh, nobody else? Okay, shepherd. So you guys are staying with the big, but you're not seeing the rest.
Divine, maybe?
What do you mean by divine?
Like he's so great. Like he created everything.
Okay, he's great. We have that. Okay, great. So there's a greatness, a power. Argaitis, no, we're not there yet. We've been through the criticisms already, Argaitis. Intricate ado, okay, good. On a higher level, all right. A couple more. Good. All right, so you're ready now. So what we're going to do, in order to see really this vision, we have to contrast it, right, to the vision that Job used to have. And then we'll be able to see what's going on. So let's go back to the prologue. Go with me to the prologue and tell me there, what kind of God do you see? How would you describe the God of the prologue, the God as Job sees him in the prologue? So let's go to page 5, right, 5 to 6. This is where Job is, doing his thing, doing the sacrifices for his children in case, in case they sin, right? Ahmad, God is easygoing in the prologue or in the poetry? Where are you, Ahmad? The prologue. Okay, you see God easygoing. Let me give you a different picture. So you have Job, who is so afraid that his children will sin, just in case he does a sacrifice for them, in case they sin, and therefore what? What happens if they sin? do you think? In his mind. Okay, exactly, Jasper, right? They're down. So he's so afraid his children will be punished by sinning without even knowing they're sinning. He does the sacrifices. What kind of God is this? What kind of God does he have in mind when he's so worried that maybe his children will sin, that he will offer a sacrifice just in case, so they're not damned? What kind of God does this describe us? Tell me. Okay, so pretty harsh, unforgiving, spiteful, very good. Okay, we can have holy too, Delmas. Very good. So there's three main characteristics actually that I see in the prologue. Number one, in the prologue, we have a rigid, narrow-minded God, right? In other words, we have a God who has there is a certain way to act. And if you don't act that way, according to Job, right, according to his vision of God, if I don't walk the line, if I'm not yasha, righteous, bad things will happen to me. So this is a rigid God who is watching for your every sin, right? If you go away from the path, boom, you will, some lightning will strike you. This is really the God in Job's mind in the prologue, right? Everybody gets this first point of the rigid, narrow-minded God in the prologue, right? Okay, great. Now, second point you see in the prologue that will contrast with the dialogue is we have a predictable God. In other words, Job knows that, or he thinks he knows that if he does this, then God will do this. If he doesn't do this, then God will do that, right? So we have a sense that God is pretty predictable. If I sin, I will be damned. If I do good, I will be blessed. This is a machine God, vending machine God, right? This is the God in his mind of the prologue. Third characteristic, this is a death-giving, right, punishing God, right? All suffering comes from this God. Why? Because we sinned, right? God is the one who brings the suffering when we sin. This is the three things that are in Job's mind when he thinks about God, okay? Now, I want you to go back to God's response. And I want you to tell me, so we're going to start with the first one. We have a rigid, narrow-minded God, right? What sense do you get in God's answer, which gives you a different picture? Again, reading between the lines. You're looking at the landscape and you're interpreting who is the landscaper, right? Based on the descriptions that you see in the landscape, what kind of God emerges and how do you see a God which is very different from a rigid, narrow-minded God? All right, let's see who knows. Giannakopoulos, go ahead.
So, like with the landscape, right? He describes the countless things that he's done, right? Like he gives power to the horses. He puts feathers on the birds, right? He creates the landscapes. He does everything. And such a God that can do literally everything and make so many different things cannot possibly be narrow-minded.
Okay, very good, right?
Because he puts such intricate work into every single thing that he does.
Right, exactly, right? You have, read this, right? I'm on page 79. Where were you when I planned the earth, right? Where were you when I stopped the waters, when I wrapped the ocean in clouds, right? When I swaddled the sea in shadows, right? When I commanded and guided the dawn. You have a sense of breadth. Are you following this? You have a sense of wideness in this text. You see the sky, you see the ocean. It's as though Job was stuck in a very narrow prison and God is taking him out and saying, look at the ocean, look at the sky, breathe, right? Are you seeing this first point? Put your hand in the screen. That, you know, that God in a way is coming out of this pain, right? We can sense who God is through the landscape, as instead of rigid and narrow-minded, we have here a broad, right, open-minded God, right? Creative. Open spaces, right? So we already get a sense, right, in this response by God, a sense of openness, right? As though God is saying, you know, don't be so narrow. I am much bigger than that, right? You see me like this, but I am like that, right? This is very important. Make sure you get this point. You see me like this, but I'm actually like that. And we're going to go deeper, right? Is everyone getting this point, how God is trying to broaden Job's perspective right there? just taking him outside and look at the sky and look at the sea and breathe and see how much space exists in my character, right? That's what's going on. Okay, second point, predictable God, right? Now, what in God's speech would speak against that? What do you have in the God's speech that would go against this notion of a God being, somebody we can just manipulate, right? Okay. Jarakopoulos, it's me and you today, apparently.
Oh, before I wanted to say, in one of the lines, he goes, "Where's this road to light? Where does darkness live? Perhaps you will guide them home or show them the way to their house. You know, since you have been there and are older than all creation." Like, to be older than all creation, that's God, right? And only he can say that he's older than all creation. So how could he possibly ever be narrow-minded? Like, that's what I wanted to say from before.
Oh, from before. Okay, yeah. Very good, right? He's from the beginning of creation. He encompasses all of this broadness. And of course, we are, however, making God very small, like Job was, right? But now with regards to the predictable, let me help you. What kind of animals are described in this landscape? Are they chickens? Are they dogs? Are they cats? What kind of animals? Are they domestic animals, or are they a different type of animal altogether? Very good, Ahmad, right? He's describing mostly wild animals, right? He's not talking about the chicken. He's not talking about the dog. He's not talking about the cow, right? He's talking about the ostrich, the wild donkey, the wild ox. What's the message? What is God saying about himself by painting these animals on this landscape? What do you think he's saying about himself? Shepherd, speak to us.
So kind of like what I just said, he's speaking about them in like their natural form, their undomesticated form. I guess humanity is like a microcosm of what God has created, with domestication. It says internet connection is unstable. I don't know if you guys hear me
Very
properly.
good, yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, we get the idea, right?
So he's kind of looking down on domestication and pretty much everything that humans stand for in comparison. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, so you're saying in the chat, right, speaking out against domestication, holding up his own natural creations. What kind of, if we have wild animals on the landscape, what does this tell you about God? Very simple question. What would his character be like based on the landscape? Okay, Giannakopoulos.
He's very unpredictable and wild. You wouldn't be able to tell what he's going to do. Like you were saying before, Job may have never ever seen an antelope or an ostrich, right? He probably has no idea what the heck those are, Like, how often do you see ostriches? I think he was in what was the city Job was from?
I don't know.
That's besides the point. He probably would have never seen any of these things. Like, he may have never even been on a boat in the ocean, right? So when God's saying, well, have you ever been to the depths of the ocean? Have you ever dived down there? It's impossible, right? Talks about the ostrich, you may have never seen an ostrich, right? Or any of these birds that he's talking about, So that's like, it's saying how unpredictable. He's like, look at all these things that I've made and you don't even know about them.
Exactly.
Right? Like, who are you to question me? And who are you to think that just because you're gonna do this and act this way, I'm gonna give you the result that you want?
Exactly, right? What we are seeing here, and this is the second point which I'm putting in the chat, instead of a predictable God, we have a wild, untamable God, right? It changed it to unnameable, but that works too. I meant untamed, right? So in other words, God is not there to just cater to our needs, right? God is also a force of challenge, right? God will also do things that we don't expect. You know how we are when we suffer? We're like, how could God do this to me? And we get very self-pitiful, right? What we don't often understand is that the suffering might be there to challenge us. And God is not always there to just comfort and cuddle us, right? God sometimes is there to challenge us. And in that sense, he escapes us, right? In that sense, he is unpredictable. Right? So we already have two different visions, right? The first one, this open-minded God, right? Which in a way is bigger than this narrow view that Job had. Now we go deeper. This is a wild, untamable God, which is not just there to please us, not just there to coddle us, also there sometimes to challenge us, right? And now we get to the last one, which is, we knew that God was a punishing God, right? In the prologue. What sense do you get now of God when you're looking at this landscape? What is the sense you're getting? Okay, I do. Go ahead.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Because I thought you were going somewhere very different with that question.
Okay, so we saw that God was a punishing God, kind of death-bringing God, right? Job is scared.
Mm-hmm.
He's scared for his children that God will kill them, right? So he brings death, he brings suffering. What do we see now in this discourse that is different? Yeah.
Now he's more like almost playful. Like in one of the stanzas in the conversation that he has with Job, he mentions like the bull and how he created it as his plaything. So in my head, I was like, all right, well, the God that's creating all of these animals and, is pretty much painting this whole canvas was mainly for him to have fun and like to actually, do something.
Very good. I love it, right? God is playful. It's true. When you see all of these weird animals shaped all funny and there's a lot of playfulness, right? In this text. Absolutely. So we sense, right? Behind the landscape, we sense the playfulness of God. There's something else I want you to notice in the landscape. Most of the animals, which gender are they and what are they doing? Mm-hmm. Most of the animals described.
They're female and they're giving birth and life to things.
Yes, they are. And so what is this telling you about God, right? All of these images of life, of birth, of renewal. What are you seeing here through this landscape about the character of God? Janakopoulos, go ahead.
He's a loving and life-giving God.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, right?
That's the thing. Like, he's a life-giving God. He never meant, like, you can say, like, in a lot of our prayers, like in my church, the Orthodox Church, we see that we ask, we see in that God tells us, like, he doesn't want to destroy his creation. He's not pleased when his creation goes into hell or his creation does bad things. He wants his creation, us, right, to do good things, right? Because he gave birth to us and he loves us, right? If he didn't love us, if he hated Job, he didn't care for Job, the second Job questioned him, he would have just smote him down and killed him, right? But no, he loves Job and he loves humanity. So he was willing to go along with Job's questions and Job's plan almost.
Good, absolutely, right? We have now this notion of life gushing forth, right? As though God is saying, you think I'm the one bringing death into the world? No, I'm the one bringing life into the world. I'm the one who is telling you right now to stand up. I'm the one who is taking you out of the dust back into your own life. I'm the one who will give you new life as you're going through this ordeal. I'm not the one who gives you death and suffering. I'm the one who gives you life and renewal through this suffering, right? So this is are you seeing clearly this brand new revelation that is coming forth out of this canvas and landscape? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Put your hand in the screen if you're following. It's difficult because it's subtle, right? Colon, you have a question, go ahead.
No, I was just raising my hand.
Oh, thank you. So bottom line, right, in conclusion, what we are seeing here is a God who is telling Job, come out of your narrow space and live, right? Come out of your asphyxiating religiosity and breathe, right? Stop being afraid of life. Stop being afraid of making mistakes. Stop being afraid of sinning. Stop being afraid of suffering. Enter life, right? This is where I am. I'm not here in your little confined space of religiosity. I'm out here in life, in the world, right? So this is such a powerful invitation which goes against most religions, right? Most religions will tell you, go in this tiny space, right? This is a God saying, leave this tiny narrow space where you have lived in fear, in fear of transgression, in fear of pain, in fear of making mistakes, and enter life, right? Don't be afraid to suffer. Don't be afraid to enjoy. Don't be afraid to love. Don't be afraid to live. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Are you seeing this? I'm really exploding, so I hope you're seeing this. Is everybody seeing this? Right? This is such a powerful revelation which goes against everything we've been taught. We've been taught don't live, don't suffer, don't love, stay here, be safe, don't make this false move, don't make this mistake. God is saying, please, please, I beg you, humanity, breathe, expand, dilate, enter life, right? Don't be afraid because I am here within this life. This is where the true life is, right? And so now we can see how amazing it is that how as Job himself is changing through the suffering experience, his vision of God is expanding, right? And that's why he's ready, right, to see what he sees. And this is the revelation that he has that Ahmad mentioned, right, earlier. I had heard of you, but now I have seen you. I had heard that you were a vengeful God. I had heard that you punished the sinner. I had heard from my priest or my rabbi or my imam that you bring punishment, but now I have seen you. I see that you are the God of life, the God of love, that you want me to breathe, you want me to enter life, you want me to stop being afraid, you want me to come out of this narrow space into this broad open space, right? Am I making sense? Are you hearing my preaching? Okay, great. Okay, now, any questions on this before I go in? I need to go in the epilogue like in 2 minutes. So any question on this part where you're confused or perplexed? Giannakopoulos, very quick. Go ahead.
I just want to say I agree with everything you've been saying. But I feel like our experience is different a little bit, like how you were saying that you know, we've been told all our life not to be afraid. We've been told our life to be afraid, you know, to be afraid to sin, to live life and stuff like that, but and to question, right? And to doubt. But, you know, like when I was growing up, my priests, they never said anything like that, you know. They always, like one of my favorite priests ever, he always said a little bit of like a seed of doubt can lead into a tree of faith, you know, and I've always felt that because, you know, if we have a little question and that question gets answered, then it'll sprout into a huge tree and we'll learn a lot more, right? So I guess like that's how we differ a little bit in
You
growing
had
up.
good teachers, Giannakopoulos. You're fortunate.
Very fortunate. My dad's also a priest, so that helps a lot too.
Oh, it's in your blood. Excellent. Now, let's get into the epilogue, which all of you found disappointing. And for a good cause, right? Can anyone tell me what was so disappointing about the epilogue? I mean, some people liked it, right? Oh, he gets all his wealth back. Wonderful. All is well that ends well, right? What is the problem? What is the issue that should be bothering you about the epilogue? Let me hear some of you on that. What's weird about the epilogue? Adu, I see you gesticulating. Go ahead.
Okay, so like after reading that epilogue, in my head, it kind of seems like a fairy tale ending that just seemed way too good to be true. Like, all right, you disobeyed God, you talked bad about him. Now you've come to realize he's a great person. That's great. And now he's rewarding you and, you know, shunning your friends for, you know, not believing and trusting in you. So I found that really odd. And I just didn't know how to like process it.
Okay, good. In fact, the epilogue should remind you of the prologue. In what way are they similar? This is the issue. Adu.
It goes back to like the materialistic stuff again.
Exactly. Where the epilogue, I hope you're getting this, is bringing us back to square one, where religion is all about the material. Oh, Job suffered, you know, he went through these trials, but ultimately God blessed him. So really, ultimately, the reward of faith is what? Happiness. And we're back to the prologue, right? Where faith is all about reward. And so this cannot possibly be, are you seeing how this cannot possibly be the true happy ending of the book? Because we are back to square one. How, and by the way, the writer, if I can find the book, which has disappeared all of a sudden. Here it is, right? The writer actually is intentionally writing exactly like the prologue. Go to page 91, right? Look how it's written, right? Then the Lord returned all Job's possessions and gave him twice as much as he had before. I hope you're seeing the irony dripping, right? Or the sarcasm. So the Lord blessed the end of Job's life more than the beginning. Job now had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, etc. We're back in the prologue. We're back in the philosophy, in this kind of theology that if you do the right thing, if you believe in God, if you stand firm, if you have faith, in the end, God will bless you materially. So are you all following why this cannot be the true happy ending? Put your hand in the screen if you're seeing what I'm saying, right? So there has to be a different happy ending, if there is a happy ending. Where do you think the true happy ending lies to the story of Job? And you have a few things here which should give you a hint of what the true happy ending is. Some interesting details that were not mentioned in the prologue are mentioned here. That should give you a clue. There's something going on here, telling us something. So what do you think is the true happy ending of the book of Job? Okay, Jaramillo, tell us, speak to us.
I feel like it comes down to being happy with yourself, like and accepting God as who he is. Like when he saw God, he was like shocked. He was like, okay, I hear about him, but now that I get to see you, now I truly believe in everything that I heard.
Okay, so you mentioned the within. Can anyone elaborate what Jaramillo just said here? What is this within happy ending that we could talk about in the book of Job? I think he's on the right track. There is a within happy ending. What is that? What happened within Job which constitutes a happy ending? Sing, go ahead.
Well, I feel like at the end, yeah, he did get like materialistic things back, but within himself, he realized that his view of God is different now, and then like his spiritual, like he's at like a higher spiritual level. So I feel like that's a true gift. He understands God in his entirety, not just from a narrow perspective.
Okay, excellent. First true happy ending. There's several. One of them, the inner transformation, right? That he went through. He saw God, for God's sake, right? That's got to be a happy ending. He used to just hear about God, but now he has a revelation. And what a God that was, right? This amazing, right? This completely new vision of God, as playful, as full of life, as exuberant, as, you know, broad, right? So this can be one of the true happy endings of the book. Absolutely. There is another one hiding here in the epilogue. Can anyone tell me this detail that is added towards the end, which is unusual, and which actually says something about who Job has become? The detail at the end, right after all the possessions. Adu.
I think it has to do with his age and how he was able to pretty much witness his grandchildren and great-grandchildren like grow up.
Okay, although this is not far from the material, right? Oh, he lived a long life.
True.
Health.
True. I guess family?
Describe. The family has shifted. You're right. His family dynamic has shifted. How has it shifted? Let's see. Karuchi, go ahead. We haven't heard you in a while.
I think, I don't say this in the context of family, but I just think in general, Job lived long so that he could share with others what he had learned and what was revealed in him about who God is and what God is. So to kind of say something different about God and about faith than all of the others were saying, including his friends.
So
Okay. He became an evangelist.
Well, I think that might have been God's purpose all along, was to reveal to people more about God than they already knew.
All right.
To let them see God.
The only drawback with what you're saying is that it's not in the text.
Well, that's what I drew from the text. That
Yeah, okay. But it's this what I'm talking about. It's clearly in the text. But yes, you're right. The long life indicates perhaps, you know, being able to teach, being able to share this vision, although it is not explicitly in the text. Now, Ahmad, you're on the right track as far as what I was seeing. Ahmad, go ahead.
His daughter's names are just common things like cinnamon, dove, and eyeshadow.
Yes. Now, why does it should strike you as there's something odd going on? He has 7 sons, 3 daughters. He names the daughters, he doesn't name the sons. And then he talks about his possessions being shared with the daughters. Now, if you come from a patriarchal culture, you should already feel like something odd is going on. What is going on that is really unpatriarchal right now in this naming of the daughters and not the sons, and in the share of the inheritance to the daughters? If you're familiar with biblical culture, this should strike you as very odd. Karuchi, you still have your hand up. Is that for now or for before?
No, that was from before. Sorry.
Okay. All right. What is going on? Why are the daughters named, and what does this tell us about Job and how his family dynamics have changed? Okay, Sing, go ahead.
Does it relate back to like the bigger picture when he saw like wild animals and there were females, and like how females are the birth of everything? So probably like he has a new perspective or understanding that females, or like that God created and had females, and there were like a sense of birth. Or
you're on the right track. There is a lot of emphasis in the text, you're right, on the female, right? The female animals, and now the daughters. What's happening? I think one of you is on the right track. Jaramillo, tell us where you're going with what you put in the chat.
Like back in the day, that's how it used to be. Like the men used to come first and everything, and then I guess he took that away in a sense.
Yes.
And then pass it down to the woman.
Yes, he is subverting patriarchy. Job has become the type of man who can think outside the box, right? Patriarchy prescribes that the daughters are not named. When you go throughout the Hebrew Bible, there are no names for the women, just the men, right? Except a few exceptions, right? In general, inheritance goes to the man. Job is reversing the culture. He is now becoming this kind of thinking outside of the box type of person. He's renewing the culture. He is becoming progressive, right? Whereas before he was pretty, set in his ways, right? Something has exploded in his mind, right? He's able also to understand the plight of those who were invisible, right? He hears the muted voices of the women of his clan, right? He sees the women who were once invisible. He has become more sensitive, more compassionate, more empathetic. Are you following me on this? Put your hand in the screen if you're seeing, right? This is a completely different man, right? He's able to see the woman. I mean, any man who is able to really see the woman and see her as an equal, as worthy of a name, is a man that has evolved to a very high degree, right? Especially in the culture. He's doing something which goes way beyond his culture, right? He's way ahead of his time. Why? Because his vision has been broadened by his suffering, right? This is one of the lessons of the book of Job, is learning to suffer and understanding that when you suffer gracefully, this can actually broaden your vision. This can broaden your life. This can broaden your capacity for empathy, your capacity for compassion. Your worldview, right, can shift if you go through the suffering as passionately as Job did. Okay, any last comments? I hope now you're seeing, those who didn't like this ending and who didn't like the response of God, I hope you're feeling a little better. How many of you are a little better now with the response and the ending? Should be a few of you. That's it, 3 people. Everybody else is like, Okay, great. Okay, so hopefully you got this. This was a hard text, right? This is not an easy text because everything is so subtle. And you never know if he's saying something that is ironic or something that is true, right? It's hard to distinguish between the ironic moments and the true moments, but we did it, guys. Okay, so we are now done with the book of Job, and the next book we will be doing, which I'll be introducing next week, is Maimonides. So this is going to be very exciting, totally different approach to suffering, although Maimonides will refer us back to the book of Job in one of his, in one of the passages that we're gonna read. Okay, any questions on anything I said? No homework for next time. No homework for next time. Okay. Okay, guys, you can go. Whoever needs to stay can stay. Whoever still has questions can stay behind. The rest of you can go home. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor.
you, Professor.
Seeing
Have a
you
good
for the
one.
22nd.
Thank you, Professor.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Professor,
Yes.
we won't be seeing you till the 22nd.
Is that so?
The 16th is President's Day. The 17th, we don't have class. And then...
That's right. We see each other the 22nd.
Okay.
Oh, there's a test. Oh my God, stop everybody. There's a test on February 20. Oh my God. I'll put everything in the, I'll put an announcement in Blackboard how to do the test. But yeah, since some of you are still here, I'm going to tell you. So the test, you see the 2 questions in the, or is it, wait, there should be one. Is the question there? Yeah, there's 2 questions, right? In the syllabus. Did God answer Job, and if so, how? This is what we did today. And actually, they're both what we did today. Does the book of Job have a happy ending? And if so, what is it? Actually, this encompasses the whole, the 2 lectures, right? So the way you're going to ace the test, right? There's 3 things you have to bear in mind. Number 1, you want to write an answer that is as detailed as possible, right? So this is why your notes have to be detailed, right? You want to make sure you write your notes as detailed as possible also. So make sure be as detailed as possible. It's supposed to be at least 1 page, single-spaced per answer, right? So 2 pages total, right? So you should be able to fill out, right? Type up at least a page single space. So that's a lot of information, right? You want to bring in as much as possible. And then number 3, you want to have supportive quotes from the text, right? So now whatever you're going to say about God, about Job, you want to bring in quotes from the text. So remember, when I'm reading in the text, that's when you should be underlining, following, because you're going to use those quotes, right, for the test. So make sure you bring in all the quotes that you can to support whatever you're saying. So that would be the way. So then you put that test in the folder, right, in the Google Drive on the 20th. Actually, you can do it a little later too, because no, actually the 20th is good. It's a Saturday, I think. When is the 20th? I feel like we're so far away from the 20th. We're like the 10th, like how 10 days later? Yeah, because we'll have like, I think 1 class of Maimonides in between, right? No, there's a review. Okay, I see. The 17th, there's a review, and the 15th, there's okay, fine. Good. So at the same time you put in the test, you do the essay. Now let me talk about the essay. So the essay is basically your spiritual journey, right? Where are you right now? Or you can also go back to where you used to be before you repressed all your questions, right? So kind of tell me where were you in the beginning, right? When you were young, and what happened that would shift you? Where are you now? That's the first thing. And then the second thing I want you to say is there anything in what we did in Job that resonated with you? Right? Is there anything that resonated with you that you feel that you felt excited to hear, or maybe didn't like? It doesn't matter. You don't have to have a happy essay. You can have a very cynical, disturbing essay if you want, right? But was there anything in the text that caused a reaction, right? It could be a happy reaction, or it could be an unhappy reaction. I don't care, right? There was a student, he would have no reactions. Like the whole time he was writing, he would say, I am now comfortably numb. And I have not moved an inch since the last time. So you can do that too, right? So this is very free. It's a single spaced, 1.5 pages, right? Single spaced. And you can write either a letter to yourself, or you can write a journal entry. It's very free. It's just you really going back to who you were, your questions. You can pick one particular issue that you struggled with spiritually, and was there anything in the book of Job that kind of like excited you or resonated with you or disappointed you, right? Doesn't matter. Are you clear on the essay? Is the essay making sense? Any questions on the test and the essay? Okay, now, are there any Sikh students left in this group? Okay, Singh, that's it, just you? Okay, so I'm actually going to tell everyone to listen to this last section of the lecture so they can get this information. So 6 students, Pelico also, okay. 6 students, the instructor who is working with you will contact you to create a review session, and then she'll be in touch with you. Have you given her your email? That's all I need to know. Sing, have you given her your email? And Pelico, have you given her your email? You can put your answer in the chat if you want. Okay, here's her email. Okay, you know, okay, so she'll contact you about doing a review session between now and the test. Good, okay, I think I'm good. So you hand in on both the essay and the test on the same day on the 20th. You have plenty of time to work on this, so you should be good. Any questions about anything?
Professor, when you have on the syllabus no class seek review, we're not meeting as a whole, just those students needing the review will meet.
Yeah, they're not even meeting at that moment. I don't know why I put that. Yeah, I should take it out. It's confusing.
Okay, no, it's
Yeah.
fine. It makes sense. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I put the email of the instructor in the chat, sharon.mejia@qc.cuny.edu. That's for Jaramillo. Jaramillo, are you a SEEK student too? Jaramillo? Oh, yes. Okay, great. Oh, I have all 3 of you here. Let me.
Well, I think I used to be. I don't know if I'm still 6.
Once a SEEK student, always a SEEK
Okay.
student. Let me mark you so I know that you are. So we have Jaramillo, Sing, and Pelico. And I think you're the only ones. Jaramillo, I'll circle you. Jaramillo, Sing, which one? Which one are you? D or E? You're E, right? Sing E.
Yeah.
And Pelico, got you. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Oh, Cueva? Okay. Cueva, you have does Sharon have your email, Cueva?
I have to email her too.
Yes, okay, good. So all of you will wait to hear from her. Great, okay. I'm seeking her when she was here. Okay, thank you. Great. Anything else?
So the last question is, Monday the 15th is President's Day. The 17th is Wednesday, no class. So we don't meet again on Zoom until Monday the 22nd.
Yep.
Okay. And all of the work has to be in by Saturday the 20th.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. All right, now you guys can go. See you guys later.
All right, can I ask my questions since everyone left? I'm guessing.
Yeah, sure. Alida, go ahead.
Okay. So first, what God told